What's your name and age?
Richie Rector, 38.
Richie, tell me how you got into log hauling.
My dad had a truck. My dad drove my whole life, pretty much. So I didn't have a chance. I was right there from the time I was a kid till today.
That's pretty cool. Do you remember what your first ride in a log truck was like?
Um, as far back as I can remember, the first ride in the log truck, um, I just remember staring out the window and couldn't believe how big everything was. And I was probably 5.
That's cool.
And I still remember the truck that he was driving, and he used to call my mom from the scale rack to see if I was home from school or not yet, and he'd stop and get me on his way back to get his last load.
Oh, that's cool.
So pretty much every day I got to ride to go get his last load with him.
That truck he was driving, what was it?
It was a A model Kenworth. Ron Eastman Kodak owned it at a Joyce there. And yeah, it was an A model Kenworth. It had a Detroit in it. I was little, so I don't remember a whole lot about it. But yeah, that was as far back as I can remember. That's the first log truck.
Do you remember who he was hauling for at that time?
Charlie Hartman.
Okay.
Yep.
And where was he logging out of?
Up above, on the hill up above Freshwater Bay.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he had the Hahn harvester then, and his old 892 or whatever it is that Ed and Dina have.
Oh, sure.
That John Deere shovel that they have is the one that Charlie had then.
Wow. That is cool.
Yeah. So that's as far back as I can remember. And the back of our truck hauled there. And
yeah. Now, did your dad always drive for somebody else, or did he own his own truck at one point? Or?
My dad bought a self-loader in 95.
Oh, wow.
And had it till 2000.
Wow.
So 95 to 2000, that's when I really got invested in the trucking. All my weekends consumed the truck. Baseball was out the door, everything. I just log truck.
Yeah. And what made him want to get out of the self-loader gig?
When 2000 came, everything got super slow, and it just was bad timing, and an old truck. And he told me from a long time ago, an old truck will break you.
Yeah.
And just number things. But Dennis Wilhelm, Pat Yar, all of them guys helped him a lot when he got going with the self-loader work. You know, handing him work here, handing him work there.
Sure.
Yep.
So when your dad got out of the self-loader, then who did he go and work for after that?
He worked for Dennis Holcomb.
Okay.
He had that pit on Black Diamond Road that Brook and Brook has now.
Yeah.
And he did a bunch of road building and other stuff. So he drove dump truck for him, ran equipment.
Sure.
And then he eventually went back to a log truck because once it's in your blood, it's there forever.
Yeah. Okay. And of course, we're talking on the day, which would be, I mean, you don't really want to call it this, but the anniversary of when he passed.
9th year, yeah.
I can't believe it's been 9 years ago already.
Right.
But yeah, and my condolences to you and your family, man. But so, Richie, tell me about when you first got into a log truck driving one. I mean, did you start as a wash guy for people, or how did you end up getting into it on your own?
I washed my dad's truck. I washed and greased and helped him do truck work. And he was hauling for Mike McGough on the M&R Tree Farm doing blowdown right away. And that's where I kind of got my foot in driving through the gate, and driving back out of the gate. And once I got to where I could see over the dash and learned how to shift and all that, then he would let me drive it empty.
That's cool.
So I drove all the way in every day. When I wasn't in school, I rode with my dad. And if I knew he was going somewhere I could drive, I was there.
Wow.
So I would drive and drive and drive, and then I got good at it, or good enough where I wasn't missing gears, and he would let me drive out loaded. So that's where I started, 13, 14, 15 years old.
Wow. That is so cool.
And I learned how to run the loader and load logs, and I just did everything. If my dad was doing it, I wanted to do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. So did you get your CDL like right straight away, or when did?
As soon as I turned 18 in January, I had my CDL by April that year.
Yeah.
And I was hauling logs for Gabe Rygard.
Okay.
That's where I got my CDL in one of Gabe's trucks, and he put me right to work. He said, as soon as you graduate high school, I'll give you a job. So as soon as high school was done, graduated on a Friday, I was hauling logs Monday.
Wow. That is so cool. So how long did you work for Gabe Reigard
I
then?
worked for him well, I worked there a month and I ended up crashing.
Mhm.
And I had to have time off. It fractured a vertebrae in my back. And so as soon as I healed up, I went back
Yeah.
and drove for Gabe and drove for a couple other guys, J.R. Witherow and Pleat Brothers out of Nia
Oh
Bay,
yeah.
Forks. Just bounced around because insurance was really hard
Sure.
before I was 21.
Sure. Okay.
And then Gabe bought 3 brand new Western Stars in 2006, and I got one of them, 21 years old, with a brand new truck.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought I was, you know,
Yeah, the bee's knees. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
thought I was cool.
Yeah.
And
Well, you
so,
were.
yeah, you know, and my dad, he said, well, I never had a brand new truck at 21 years
Yeah.
old. I said, I know, but I do.
Yeah.
And I've just been hauling logs ever since. I learned to drive lowboy working for Gabe, and I mean, I
Yeah.
owe a lot to that guy. He's
Yeah.
not here, but I really do. That's where I learned how to run shovel. That's where I got my start driving. I knew how to drive,
Yeah.
and that's why he didn't have a problem, because he already knew who my dad was, knew where I learned.
Yeah. Oh man, that's cool. So you now, did you work for Gabe for 5, 6 years
I
then?
worked for him for till 2006, pretty much. I could say 2003 to 2006 between
Okay.
Gabe and a couple other places.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
mostly for Gabe. And then the spot came open where my dad was working for Kenny Bechtold,
Yeah. Okay.
and I went to work with my dad, and I worked there with my dad for quite a few years,
Oh wow. Oh, that's cool. So how often did you guys get to haul off the same job together?
almost every day,
Oh, that's cool.
unless I was farmed out or went and hauled somewhere else. But otherwise, we were every day same job. He'd load first, or I'd load first.
Yeah. That's awesome. So now after the Kenny Bechtold work, what did you move on to after that?
So Kenny sold the truck to Barry Swanson,
Hmm.
and I went to work for Brett Waldron for a little while, and then ended up going to Swanson, and I worked there.
Yeah. Okay.
That's where I learned to drive mule train. And
All right. Okay. So then, how long did you work for Barry for then?
I worked for him a couple, 3 different times,
Yeah.
but a couple years at a time.
Sure. And then you had a stint pulling flat decks or something
Yeah,
too,
I
right?
hauled flatbed, and then I pulled reefer trailers,
Yeah.
just trying something different to see what was out there.
Sure.
But I always have come back to hauling logs.
Yeah. Oh, that's neat. So all this comes to a head and you buy your own truck. So how long ago was that?
So it came about, I was driving for Barry,
Hmm.
and I was hauling for Rich Carr in Discovery Bay there.
Hmm.
And I said, hey, I'd like to have my own truck someday. And he goes, well, let's make that happen. And I thought he was just full of it.
Yeah.
And he goes, did you find a truck yet? I said, I didn't think you were serious. He goes, no. He goes, I will help you. And so we started looking and found that red and white one that I had
Sure.
in Eastern Washington. And we went over and looked at it, and ended up, he gave me the loan for it through him.
Wow.
And we went and bought it, brought it back, did some work to it, kept driving for Barry, got all my CC permit, my DOT number, did everything I needed to get done, and then told Barry that, hey, this is what I did. It was time for me to go out on my own. And so I hauled my first load of logs with it October 20th, 2021.
Cool.
I had it till July of 2022, and then I bought this one.
Okay.
Sold it and bought this.
Now, is this a Barry Swanson truck?
No, this truck came out of up by Deming originally.
Okay.
Up that way, Skagit County. It was a Zender truck.
Okay. Yeah.
And then when they retired, shut the doors, a topsoil guy bought it. He was going to make a dump truck out of it, but it was too long.
I gotcha.
So I bought it from him, sold my red and white one on a Friday, went down, dropped it off in Roseburg down that way, came home and was on the ferry Monday to go pick this up.
Wow. Cool.
And it didn't have none of the pinstripes or none of that. It was just all one color, and I had it all pinstriped up, and then memory on the back of the cab for my dad. And
Yeah. Oh, cool, man. So, Richie, through like this career you've made for yourself log hauling, what has been the most fun about it for you?
I think some of the most fun was working with my dad, but I think also some of the most fun was as much as it sucks now having kids and a family,
Yeah.
working away from home,
Sure.
but when I was younger, single, working away from home was a blast.
Yeah.
Seeing all the different places, meeting all the different people.
Yeah. What's the furthest away from home you've worked then?
I've hauled over in Colville,
Mhm.
Kettle Falls. I've hauled down um into Oregon. I've hauled all over the map.
Wow.
Idaho, into Idaho.
Wow. So out of all those different places then that you have hauled out of, I guess what would you say would have been the most fun place to work out of then?
I liked hauling over out of Colville.
Okay. And
I like it over there.
what was it about that place?
Just the people.
Okay.
They're I mean, you
Nice.
pull over on the side of the road to check your wrappers. You got some guy yelling on the radio, "Hey, are you all right?" Or some guy in a pickup,
Wow.
some farmer, "Hey, do you need anything?" "No, I'm just tightening my wrappers." "Oh, okay."
Wow.
Just the camaraderie, and even not the truck drivers, just the other people. All the people in the county roads with the pickup, they'll wave at you, or
Everybody's just nice.
just friendly.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, okay, where we're at out here on the peninsula, and then even out west further, have you had more difficult people to deal with than maybe anywhere else in?
I wouldn't say difficult people, but there's some that will ruffle feathers just to ruffle feathers.
Sure. Okay. That's just the attitude.
Right.
Gotcha. And I mean, these days, do you stay pretty steady with one logger, or are you bouncing around a bit too?
Right now, with it being slow, I've been bouncing.
Okay.
But for a while, I hauled for Robinson and Robinson out of Forks,
Okay.
and they kept me real busy. And then things started slowing down with the market, and
Sure.
I've bounced here. I just did a job up hauling off of Whidbey Island to Darrington.
Wow.
I come back home to work and did that job, and they didn't have nothing to go to, so I come up here and told Mason, "I'll be your man."
Yeah. Cool. Very cool. So, Richie, in all the years of being out on the road, what have you seen change the most with, I guess, maybe the trucking side of the timber industry that you would say you dislike?
I still don't feel the rates are what they should be.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the hours we put in, sometimes even owning the truck or as a driver for the money we make, it should be more.
I've heard people talk about it on both sides of this, but do you feel like the only difference between owning the truck as opposed to driving with somebody else or driving for somebody else is you just have the pride of having your name on the door, as opposed to if you drove someone else's truck, you might make more money not having to deal with it? Or
I think driving for somebody, you bring home more money in your pocket.
Sure.
But I like the pride of my name on the door, and to a point, you're your own boss. But if you look at it, you're still, Mason's my boss.
Yeah.
I'm hauling for Mason.
Yeah.
He tells me when to be there or what we got on the landing, or
Yeah.
so I'm still working for somebody.
I gotcha. So then, what would you say the biggest impact has been to the industry since you've been driving log truck that you thought was a good thing? Like, I suppose, like we talked about, rates they could be better. But have you seen anything that you've seen change that you thought, wow, this is actually a really good thing, what's happened?
I haven't seen a lot.
It's just kind of stayed the same.
It's kind of stayed the same, and it could always be better.
Sure.
It could always be worse too.
Sure. Is there anything that pops to mind that you would, like, other than rates, that you would say, yeah, this really needs to happen like right now, and it would um, help the industry as a whole, I guess, getting more younger people involved?
I would imagine it's just the money aspect.
Yeah.
Everybody's so money hungry.
Sure.
And then if you look at it as an owner, the rates need to stay where they are now, but the fuel price needs to come down.
Sure.
Then you'd make a little bit more money.
How many young people have you seen since you've gotten a CDL get into log hauling I mean, it seems like the last time I looked, the general age for someone that drives a CDL vehicle is up in the 50-year-old, something like that.
And I only seen a handful from my time of getting mine to now. There's only been a handful, maybe two handfuls of the younger generation
That stuck with it
that
even?
stuck with it.
Yeah.
Myself, I was 18. Then you got, like Jeremy Johnstad, he was young when he started. But you go younger, there's a few guys in Forks that are in their early 20s that are doing it, but how long are they going to want to do it?
Sure. And speaking of Jeremy Johnstad, didn't he start driving with Tater in one of Brett Waldron's trucks, or am I misremembering?
No, Jeremy started actually in the truck you had, that long nose from Bauer.
Oh, sure. Okay.
That's where he started.
Gotcha. Wow. Didn't even know that.
Yeah, so Jeremy started there, and then he went to work for a couple other places in Forks.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And Richie, like, unless you had something else that really came to mind that you'd like to talk about. Okay. Here we go. So that brings to mind, who would you say was the biggest character out of the guys that you've worked with? Shovel operator, log trucker.
Oh, the biggest character? I guess it just depends on the day.
Yeah.
I've hauled with a lot of good guys. I've hauled with a lot of guys that you're like, oh, I don't want to talk to him.
Yeah. Okay.
God, the biggest character. One that comes to mind would be Tim Gillespie. He always talked about hauling in Eastern Washington and doing things that his wife probably wouldn't be proud of, but
Sure.
it was just funny. If you were tired and you were running to town with him, he was a good one to keep you awake.
Okay.
But there's a lot of them. If you were to just pick one, right off the top of my head, that'd be hard.
Yeah, I gotcha. And what was probably the coolest job to haul off of for view or people or whatever?
Well, I've hauled off of some pretty cool jobs. I think one of the coolest jobs I hauled off of was off the Hammer Rec Road.
Okay.
It was summertime, and it was all 4 and 5 log loads going down to Stimpson and Klatskanai.
Yeah.
So you were polished out, going down the freeway looking good. Everybody was looking at your load.
Yeah.
Just those kind of jobs.
How long ago was that? What year?
Oh, 2008.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I was driving for Bechtold, hauling for Bay Timber.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So it was a long time ago.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well,
and then the other cool stuff I get to do is like this stuff for Mason, hauling the tube back.
Yeah.
I've never hauled a tube, so this is a first.
Yeah. It's quite the lash up you guys have on that.
Yeah, it's, I learned the fiddle string trick from my dad to hold myself together, so a little bit of him right there with me.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, other than your dad, sounds like, who was the biggest influence in just teaching you the ropes and how to be?
My dad taught me a lot, but I mean, just other guys. Tater.
Yeah.
He's the one that taught me how to hang tire chains. He taught me how to throw them. One winter in Yakima, I had no clue, and I slid down the hill backwards.
Oh, no.
And I learned real quick that if you second guess yourself, you're probably going to be in trouble.
Oh.
I made it a truck length from the top of the hill and slid all the way down backwards.
Oh, no.
Never again. If I second guess or even question, it only takes a second to put a set of chains on.
Oh, man. What about scariest experience?
Probably that.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So that wreck where you hurt your back, where was that at?
Just out by Burnt Mountain.
Gotcha.
Just before you drop into Clallam Bay.
Okay.
That was scary, but it knocked me out, so I don't remember
wow.
a whole lot about it.
Oh, man. Okay. So you don't have to get into talking about hours or anything, but is log hauling, for people that don't know anything about it, is this a 5-day-a-week job? Is it more than that?
Well, if you're a driver, it's 5 days a week, hose off on Friday, turn your repair sheet in, and pick it up Monday. But for me, I'll go home and I'll work on it tomorrow. Yeah. I'll probably work on it Monday.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
You, me, and anybody else who's owned one knows that it's not a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Yeah, it's a 6 or 7 day a week job,
Yep.
depending on what you want to do.
Yep.
Sure. So what year is this truck?
This is an 04.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got a C15 cat and 18 speed. And
yeah.
The big 46s with double lockers, so all the good stuff.
How many miles has it got on it?
It's got a 890,000 on the body.
Okay.
But it's got right around 300 on the motor and 150 or less on all the running gear.
Oh, so it's practically brand new.
It's
then.
like, that's why I bought the truck. When I found everything out about it, I knew that this would last me a while.
Yeah. Oh, cool. So, Richie, what would you say to a young person that would want to get into log hauling? Like, any words of wisdom? Or
just don't get in a hurry.
Yeah.
Take your time, get a routine, do the same thing every day, and pretty soon you'll have a rhythm down and things will click. And don't get complacent, because when you get in a hurry, that's when stuff happens.
Yeah.
Complacency, I think, is the biggest one. Be aware of all your surroundings. You know what's going on. You're not going to be able to tell what that car in front of you is going to do, so don't be right up on him, you know. And we're guilty. You know, I've done it. I still do.
Yeah.
But if I had to give some advice, and sometimes learn from my own, it's just don't get in a hurry. That load of logs is going to be there.
Yeah. Well, man, I really appreciate you stopping on this long trek to do this interview with me. And is there anything else you can think of that's just needs to be out there and needs to be said?
I wish that we did have more younger people in this, because it's like everybody talks about a cowboy being a dying breed. This timber industry feels like it's going to be the same way. I've been doing it 20 years now.
Yeah.
And I remember when I started, the guys that are passing away now, the older guys that I remember hauling logs with. And there's nobody younger than me, except for maybe a handful of guys that are getting into it. I've got friends who've got kids that are going to be 18, 19 years old, and their dads drive log truck and have their whole life. They don't want nothing to do with it. It's not where the money's at. I just wish it was different. I always say I wish it was like it was in the 80s or the 70s.
Sure.
I wish I could go back and see what it was like then as compared to what it's like now.
Yeah.
Because I've heard all the stories, seen all the pictures, but it's nothing like that now.
Yeah. Certainly. Well, hopefully things will change, and when the demand grows, that hopefully the rates will go up enough to keep people interested. And
one can hope.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thanks again, Richie, and you have a great trip, man.